Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Tuning In podcast. I'm Maria Furlano. Thank you for joining me today. And just in case you didn't know, because it's fairly new, it's only been the last 3 podcasts that I've done this, but in this new year, and by the way, happy new year to you. Today is January 5th, 2024. And I just wanted to let you know that if you want to view the podcast, I am now doing video podcast, which you can go over to YouTube at Maria Furlano, and you can see the podcast. Hello there. And love for you to leave a comment, share an insight, ask a question over there. It's really easy for me to see your comments or to hear your questions. And of course, if you love listening to the podcast, I'm still on all of your favorite podcast listening apps. So not going anywhere there, but it is great to add this new video component and be able to share a little bit more with you. So thank you for being here. I hope that your new year is off to a really good start. And I wanted to expand today. This past week, I had planned to do a podcast earlier, but some construction going on in my home, and it was extremely loud and very, not conducive to recording, obviously. But I did have a moment where I stepped outside and I did a really 2-minute short video on shadow work because I got a great question about shadow work. And I've had these questions before. People want to know, what is shadow work? I've heard the term shadow work, and do I believe in shadow work was one of the questions that came in. And so after I did that video, and you can, like I said, you can just see it there on YouTube. It's just a short little incept. I got an email, and then I got 3 more emails from people after seeing that video that said, wow, I really didn't understand shadow work, especially as it's been taught in the spiritual and energetic community, which of course is where I'm coming from here. And I was wondering about my thoughts and when does shadow work end and those kinds of things. So I want to go a little more deeply today into shadow work and to answer some of those questions, because it is part of what I do is to help to bring light to things that maybe people hear about a lot, but they don't really understand it. Terms are thrown around. And then also, of course, I teach people how to really experience energy. So this is a great topic, and I hope that it will bring insights to you. And of course, please do share your insights with me in the comments. That would be wonderful. If you don't know me, I'm Maria Furlano, and I thank you so much for visiting, maybe here for the first time. I'm a spiritual intuitive. I'm a spiritual medium. I'm a healer. I'm a doctor of medical Qigong and a physician of Chinese medicine and acupuncture as well. But I teach the energetic arts, and I have programs going on most of the time. If you'd like to learn more, there's one actually that's in registration right now that's going to close registration in 3 weeks. It's called Accessing Your Center Core of Light. It's a 5-month immersion program. And you can find out all the details if you go to my website, theartoftuningin.com. And I also have free meditation series there that's live every week called Holding Space. I'd love for you to join us on that as well. So go on over there, all the details. I work privately with people. All the information is there. So please do visit. And I would love to meet you, see you, send me an email. I'm a real person, so I do answer questions and I work with real people. So feel free to communicate with me. And if you've been here for a while, thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate you. And let's get into today's topic, shadow work. First, it's important to know something that I did not introduce in my really short video on shadow work, but that shadow work, the term, was first introduced by psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung. And he termed the word shadow work, and it was about looking deeply into people's shadows. It was about looking into the conscious and subconscious personalities of people. What was happening? What was their mindset? What had they been through in their life? And what was hiding in the shadows? And this was a really deep process that he would do with people. And I think the term shadow work being used within spiritual and energetic communities is wonderful because we do need to look beyond what's going on underneath the surface. However, it's also really important to know that this is in-depth work, looking at what's unconscious, what's going on within us from our past, from our present. How are we reacting and responding in life? And sometimes you need a professional person, a psychologist, a psychoanalyst, a psychiatrist. You need therapist, counselor, hypnotherapist, all of these different people who are really trained in these types of explorations. So this is not a topic that is just very light and airy-fairy. It's deep, deep work. And one of the emails that I received after the video was about this person is very conscious of what comes up in them. They're very conscious of the shadows that surface and have been that way for a long time. One of the questions that he asked was, does it stop? We're so conscious, and when do these things stop coming up? And my answer, which probably is not very popular, is that they don't stop coming up. We get better and better at looking at them and accepting them and healing them. Because we're an energetic being, and because we are constantly reacting and responding to everything that's going on in the world, we're picking up, we're tuning in. We not only have from our past what we've experienced that may be coming up, but we also have the very daily living that we have coming up. And what I mean by that is that there's always something in life that could be triggering to something in our past. Now, technically, and we've talked about this in other podcasts, especially with cord healing and healing in general, when we do heal something in our life, we don't get triggered in the same way because the charge of that situation is gone because we've healed it. A charge is when we get activated, right? Somebody says something or does something or looks at us in a certain way, and it triggers something in us. It activates something in us, and that's the charge. And when that charge is healed, when we're not looking for things to activate us, when we can look at someone and see that they're in a bad mood and that it has nothing to do with us, and that we can choose to just be calm, go about our day, smile, or leave the situation, we don't get charged, we don't get activated. And so that's a very healthy sign when that's happening. And that's part of shadow work too. When we're looking at the deep places within ourselves, when we're looking underneath to how we react and respond in situations, then we're just looking at how happy are we in our life? How are we living our life? So with shadow work, one of the things that I mentioned in the video was that it's really about taking responsibility for how we think and how we feel, how we react and how we respond. When we are living a life that is really present, we move through life very differently because we're not running around. We're actually listening more internally. So, like, notice as I did this right now, I just noticed that I completely slowed my speech down. And what happens to me is that my vision, so my eyes, my actual visual field becomes much wider. When I begin to become very focused on something and I'm very intense and I'm not present, and I can feel that I'm much more in my survival mode. I'm in my more fight or flight mode. And all of those patterns that I have that are that survival mode, whether it's fear, insecurity, whether it's worry, whether it's doubt, whatever it is, they all begin to percolate. It's kind of like they all come up to start to protect me. And they're not really protective. They're just part of a personality that is choosing to think that those are protective, right? We all have them. But when I step back into presence and when I'm fully in myself, things begin to slow down because I feel safe. I feel embodied. I feel aligned. and my vision actually changes. And if you were to do the same thing, if you were to really get into alignment, and again, of course, this is what energetic work is all about. It's what Qigong is all about. It's all about getting into our specific alignment, accessing our center core of light. The program I teach, it's all about that. We move into the center of ourselves. We ground into the earth. We expand into the universe. Now we're in a very different space than we are when everything is out in front of us, when we're just trying to get everything done, when we're just reacting and responding to everything in our life. Those can be huge triggers for us. But when we move into a centered space, and this, of course, is where mind, body, medicine come in, where we are aligning our mind and our body, where we are aligning our heart and our mind, as they would say in many Eastern philosophies, that our heart is actually our mind, that we want to be seeing through our heart. We want to be thinking with our heart. We want to be making decisions with our heart. And we want the mind to actually be the master of our heart. But in most situations, our mind is the master. And our mind is always trying to protect us. It's a wonderful thing, nothing wrong with it. It's great. It always has our best intentions at heart, so to speak. But it can learn patterns of protection, and it can learn habits of thinking that don't support us. There's times when I'm working with clients, for example, who have a great deal of pain in their body. And one of the things that we do in mind body medicine is we learn to allow the mind to focus in different ways so that the pain in the body begins to reduce. And we learn to clear specific thought patterns so that the pain isn't triggered. We're not activating, because pain is a huge cause of emotional distress. The more emotional factors that we have going on, the tighter our body becomes, right? That's just a physical characteristic that happens. We move into fight or flight. The tighter our body is, the less energy flows, right? It's like bunching up a cord or a hose, and the water won't flow through. And it becomes kinked and sore and painful. And then, of course, pain brings on more frustration, and it brings on more pain. So, one of the things that we do when we're learning to rechannel this in a sense is to really understand our thought patterns. And that is part of the shadow work. What comes up for us on a regular basis that we're thinking about? And how do we say, oh, okay, I get that I'm thinking about that. I get that this is a pattern, but now I want to rechannel or refocus or redirect my mind into focusing on something else that really supports me. This is where gratitude work comes in. Gratitude work is about refocusing our energy into things, one thing, many things that we appreciate, that we're grateful, that we find beauty in, so that our body flows differently. And this is a huge thing. When our body flows through gratitude, through appreciation, through joy, through peace, we feel safe. When we feel safe in our body relaxes. When our body relaxes, pain goes away or it is highly lessened. This is just a chemical, biological feature that we have, that whatever we're thinking about activates our system, because it needs to either step into action or it is allowed to let go and relax. And you can't be fully present if you're completely tense. You can't be fully present and relaxed and looking at things from a broad view when you're highly tense. So, shadow work, coming back to shadow work, when we want to begin to look at the things that are underneath, that are our shadows, right? The things that maybe we don't see or other people don't see, things that are hidden. It's very important to have love for yourself. It's very important to do this in a very gentle process. It's very important to have compassion, because if we begin to look at the shadows of ourselves, things that don't support us, things that we maybe don't want to have come up and out in our life, if we are looking at ourselves with shame or guilt or fear, that's just creating more shadows, because the shadows are filled with shame and guilt and fear and all the things that are not just open hearted. Because if we have an open heart, then we're not hiding in the shadows. We're open, we're clear. So, shadow work is about creating clarity in our life. It's about allowing things to come up and out so that we can clear out the closet and have more clarity in our life. When we're trying to hide things or we're trying to keep things at bay, then we don't have clarity. We're always just trying to take care of the next thing, kind of putting out fires in our life all the time. Where there's a lot of drama in our life, we're always dealing with something. But when we're present and when we feel safe and when we're open and when we're clear, when we are who we truly are, then there's a great deal of light in our life. And not only light in our life, but we physically feel lighter. And that's really important and very healing. And it makes life really beautiful. So when we deal with things that are coming up, so one of the questions before that I had mentioned was, how long are we going to deal with these things coming up in our mind? Like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to continue to be responsible for all of these thoughts. But this is what I have to share with that. We really don't have a luxury of not being responsible with everything that comes up, because when we don't deal on a regular basis with what we're feeling deep inside, with what's coming up for us, it builds up in such a way that our quality of life really becomes miserable. So, taking time every day to be conscious and to be really responsible with coming up could be a very fun and enlightening activity if you could turn it around in your mindset like that. And one of the things that I teach people is the that's interesting practice. So when something comes up, a lot of times, for people, it could be when they're doing dishes, it's in a shower, it's when they're walking, when they're driving, sometimes, right, things start to surface. When things start to come up, deep feelings, emotions, triggers, especially now as we're in our world and we're seeing all these things happening all the time. We're seeing them because we have access now to internet and to information that we didn't have access to many years ago. So we're being bombarded with information all the time. And some of that information we wouldn't even know about before. So our nervous system is responding and reacting to all of this information that's coming in, which is why in the very beginning I said we're energetic beings, and in the present, we're constantly reacting and responding to information that is around us. And what I mean by that is we are like antennas and we are picking up what's going on in the world. And some people are more sensitive than others and they can feel deeper and wider and longer than others. But also, we're hearing information. So even if you're someone like myself that I don't watch the news and I'm very careful with what I tune into on YouTube, I'm very careful with what I watch on TV, I'm very careful with what I listen to, because I know that there's a lot of programming going in with information. And this is very important. I just want to mention this. This is kind of a little bit of a side note. But when you are wanting to create your life, and if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably someone who really is about manifesting their life in healthy, wonderful ways and expanding their energy. So, if you want to do that for yourself, if you want to continue to grow and expand and create your life and create good things for your life and move in a flow and not get caught up in all of the other stuff in life, if you're someone like that, then when you listen or watch things, It's very important to understand that subconsciously we're taking in information all the time. So even if you are, let's say, watching the news and you're saying to yourself, well, I just watch the news to be informed, I don't agree with half of what they're saying, you are still subjecting your subconscious mind to information being fed into it. And that activates many things within you. It activates a lot of your shadow self that you may have not cleared. So if it's activating your shadow self, you haven't cleared it. We'll be very clear on that. But when you go then into your own practices of energy manifestation and creating the life you want, meditation, and holding yourself in a sacred space, your subconscious has still taken in all of the fear information, all of the anger information, all of the trauma of the world. And if you haven't cleared that, you're manifesting from those two spaces. You're manifesting from your subconscious mind that is holding all of this information. And you're manifesting as well from your conscious mind that is wanting to create something different. And so, this is why staying as clear as you can, bringing up the shadow and being very clear about it. The reason why I bring this up is because a lot of people think if I listen to something and I don't agree with it, I'll just brush it away. But after you've received certain information, if you don't take the time to fully go into the shadow of that information and release it, it stays with you. And that's really what I want us to understand when I say, when we're manifesting from our subconscious mind. We're manifesting from those feelings, belief systems that we really feel and know in ourselves. And if that hasn't been cleared, if we haven't acknowledged that, if we're not honest about it, and we're just hiding it, shoving it down, and trying to manifest something nice or better or bright, then we're living in the shadows. As you know, in Eastern philosophy, there's the yin and the yang. And the yin and the yang are mutually interdependent. It's the light and the dark. It's the action and the non-action. It's the creation and death. It is all intertwined. And so when we're manifesting and creating something, we don't want to ignore our shadow self. We want to understand our shadow self. We want to understand what's in the shadows because it's part of creation. When we just dampen down those things that don't feel good, we're only living in half of ourself. Taking the shadow and bringing in the light to the shadow creates a whole. So there's nothing wrong with the shadow self. I really want to make that clear. There's nothing wrong with the shadows. There's nothing wrong with how you feel or I feel about anything. It's who we are. But if you want to release the intensity of it, if you want to release the weight, the density of the shadows, then bringing light to that is really important. So goes back to our exercise. That's interesting, and making it fun. So when these things start to come up, you have a choice. You can look at it as very deep and dark and seriously and really get kind of pulled off course with it because it really stops your energy and it's very heavy. But you can also have these things come up, these thought patterns or feelings, and you can say, that's interesting. And you can stay in your alignment. Now, it may take a moment. You might have to breathe. You might have to learn how to get into alignment. And if you don't know how to do that, please join me because that is so important in life. And it does take a moment to get into alignment. I think sometimes people get frustrated thinking that everything is instantaneous, but when we want to shift our frequency or shift our thought patterns or shift the way we view something, we need to bring ourselves into alignment to have that new view. So it might take a few moments and it might take some training, but when you bring yourself into an alignment, and that's a state of oneness with yourself, and you have these thoughts come up or these feelings come up, you're able to look at them from a different space within yourself. You're able to look at them in a less emotionally connected way, but a very like, that's interesting way. And as you observe them, you're a conscious observer of what's coming up for you. You're able to then decide if you would like to let it go, if you would like to explore it more deeply, if you would like to get to the root of it, the core of it, and heal it and let it go. That is being a conscious observer with our shadow side. That is the taking responsibility part of our shadow side. And that is where your life becomes very enriched, because as you bring these things up, you realize you really are empowered. You really have the choice. You have the choice to tune into what's coming up and be able to heal it, or you have the choice to ignore it, to shove it down, to put it back in the shadows. Totally your choice. It just depends on how you want to feel and where you are in the moment. Maybe something that comes up is really rough. Maybe you need some professional help with that, someone who can hold space with you while you allow the healing for that. That's important. But you could still have something like that come up and say, oh, I see you. That's interesting. I see you. I see what's happening. I see you. Let's find the healing for this. You want to be able to talk to yourself like that. I saw the most beautiful quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, and I'm going to read it to you because this is really what I mean with the shadow self. Oh, it's so beautiful. You may have seen it on Instagram. It says, if a part of your body doesn't feel well, you have to spend time holding it with mindfulness, with your smile. This is exactly what I mean. If your shadow part of you comes up, we want to hold it. We want to hold space for it because it's coming up for a reason. And that's part of the taking responsibility for yourself in all of the Eastern philosophies. It's about taking responsibility for your energy and how you feel, what you are taking in from the world, and what you are expanding out into the world. Because however we feel, we are expanding that out. We are contributing to the energy of the planet. We are contributing our energy. So if we have a lot of density, if we're shoving things down, if our shadow self is not being loved and acknowledged, then we're contributing more density to the planet. That's really what it is. So what I love about this is that if you can just hold, if you can love yourself, if you can smile, if you can find it interesting and understand that these parts of us that have been termed our shadow are there for a reason, is there for us to learn something. We want to embrace it. When we embrace things, then we have energetic enlightenment. When the question came in, basically, will the shadow stuff ever stop, the continuing to come up? No, I don't think they will. But we learn to look at them with such love that immediately we have different enlightenment going on in our life. We have different peace in our life. We move through our life differently. If you were to bang your finger on something, would you get mad at your finger? Some people would. I've seen this. Or would you love your finger? And the key is if you were to see a child hurt themselves, fall down, hurt themselves, you would hold that child. You would embrace that child. You would make the child feel safe, supported, loved. And your healing energy actually wraps around that child and helps the healing in that moment. That's what we want to do with ourselves. That's what we want to do with our shadow self, is we want to love it. When we start to love it, we embrace the fact that there is beautiful, that there is not so beautiful. And we understand that that's actually just an opinion. There's shadow, there's light. That's also just an opinion. Someone else might find something in a shadow beautiful. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could find our own shadows beautiful? It doesn't mean that we condone it or accept it or that we want it to remain if it's something we release, but we want to move into a state of holding space for it so that it can emerge. I just got this visual as I was saying that it can emerge into a butterfly and fly away. That as we heal it, it emerges, it heals, and it transforms. Because that's what we always are doing with energy is we're always transforming energy. And so if something isn't the way we want it, it's not about shoving it down or pushing it away or getting angry at it. It's about how can we transform this into something beautiful, into light, into healing, into enlightenment, into more wisdom. How can we transform this? So, besides, that's interesting, maybe another something you might say is, how can I transform this? What needs to be transformed about this? What's wanting to be transformed? Why is this coming up? Not, ooh, why is this coming up again? And I can't stand this. And I wish this would just stop. And why again? And I was doing so well. It's not about that. It's coming up because you are doing really well. You've allowed space for it to come up. And it's trying to come up to have acknowledgement, to have some compassion, to have some understanding, to take you into a new level, an expanded level. So if we could look at our shadow self in love and in light, and is something that is the most wonderful wisdom teacher that we have, we would really be excited when things come up. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for me. Let's move into excitement when things start to surface. One of the things, and I'm going to talk about this in another podcast, is we are moving into a wood dragon year in the Chinese calendar. And the wood element is all about flexibility. And I'm going to talk about that in another podcast, but just as kind of a little final ending point for you to think about. When we think about wood, you want to think about bamboo. And bamboo, if you've ever seen it, it actually is incredibly strong, but it's also incredibly flexible. And that's part of the wood element, is to be very flexible, to be very fluid, to go with life, to be able to see things in an expanded way, to have beautiful boundaries, but to also be able to be benevolent, to be giving, to be receiving, to move with the winds. That's how I might suggest that you look at your shadow self. That as things surface, you're able to be fluid, to be able to move, to be able to receive, and to be able to expand. When we look at things rigidly, it's because we've moved into a state in ourself that is moving us into fight or flight, where we feel like we have to take action, we have to protect. But what we want to do is expand that state, move into ourself, move into our presence, and then look at what's coming up. That's interesting. How can I transform this? Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Thank you so much for joining me. Please leave a comment, share your insight, ask your question, share this with a friend. If you like the video, please like. It helps get out to other people who this video might support. I just thank you so much. Have a beautiful week, everybody. Happy New Year.